Let me tell you about the moment that changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was sitting in what my husband Dave called Sarah's mess room, though I preferred to call it my craft studio. I was carefully painting delicate flowers on a ceramic mug, the kind of detailed work that took hours but somehow made me feel more alive than anything else. Dave walked in, coffee in hand, and looked at the dozens of handmade mugs, bowls, and decorative pieces scattered across my workspace. "Still playing with your little hobby," he said, not meanly, but with that tone that made my stomach clench. "It's not a hobby, Dave. I sold 3 pieces yesterday." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Sarah, come on. That's not a real job. You made what, $15? I make that in 20 minutes." Dave worked in corporate finance, wore suits every day, had meetings that mattered. In his world, real jobs had health insurance, retirement plans, and paychecks that came every 2 weeks like clockwork. "Look," he continued, settling into his reasonable voice, "I think it's great that you have this creative outlet, but maybe it's time to think about going back to your old job at the accounting firm. We could use the steady income." I'd been a CPA for 8 years before I quit to start my ceramics business. Safe, predictable, soul-crushing work that paid well but left me feeling empty. When I discovered pottery 3 years ago, it was like finding a part of myself I didn't know existed. "Just give me a little more time," I said, not looking up from my painting. "I know I can make this work." Dave kissed the top of my head. "I love your optimism, honey, but at some point we have to be realistic about what constitutes actual employment." That phrase stuck with me all day. Actual employment. As if the hours I spent creating, the joy I brought to customers, the small but growing income wasn't real somehow. My Etsy store, Sarah's Ceramic Garden, had been open 18 months. I specialized in hand-painted dinnerware and decorative pieces, each one unique, each one taking days to complete from start to finish. My best month had brought in $800. My worst had been $120. Dave was right about one thing. It wasn't steady income. Some weeks I'd sell nothing. Other weeks I'd get a flood of orders that kept me up until 2 a.m. trying to keep up. But every 5-star review, every message from a customer saying how much they loved their piece made it feel worthwhile. The problem was, I was terrible at the business side of things. I undercharged for my work, spent too much on supplies, and had no idea how to market myself beyond posting pictures on Instagram to my 200 followers. That Thursday, I got a message from a customer named Margaret, who'd bought a set of soup bowls. "These are absolutely gorgeous," she wrote. "I'm hosting a dinner party next week, and everyone is going to ask where I got them. Do you have business cards I can share?" Business cards? I didn't even have business cards. I printed some out on my home printer that night, cutting them unevenly with scissors. Dave found me at the kitchen table, surrounded by paper scraps. "What's all this?" he asked. "Business cards? A customer wants to recommend me to her friends." "That's actually pretty smart," he said, and I could tell he was trying to be encouraging. "Maybe you should look into those online printing services. Make them look more professional." It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to me. Maybe he was starting to see this as more than just a hobby. 2 weeks later, I got a call that made my hands shake. Margaret, the customer with the soup bowls, was on the line, and she sounded excited. "Sarah, I hope you don't mind, but I gave your information to someone very important. She's looking for a ceramic artist for a special project." "What kind of project?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I can't say too much, but she'll be calling you today. Just Be prepared for something big. An hour later, my phone rang. Is this Sarah Mitchell from Sarah's Ceramic Garden? The voice was crisp, professional, with a slight southern accent. Yes, that's me. This is Linda Crawford. I'm the event coordinator for the mayor's office. We're planning our annual charity gala, and we need custom ceramic pieces as gifts for our major donors. Margaret Thompson showed me your work, and I'm very impressed. The mayor's office. I almost dropped the phone. How many pieces would you need? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. 200. We need elegant, sophisticated pieces that represent our city's commitment to local artisans. Each piece would need to be unique but following a cohesive theme. The budget is $15,000. $15,000. That was more than I'd made in my entire 18 months on Etsy combined. When would you need them by? I asked, my heart pounding. The gala is in 6 weeks. I know it's a tight lineup, but we're prepared to pay a premium for quality work. 6 weeks. 200 pieces. It was impossible. It was also the opportunity of a lifetime. I'll do it, I said before I could second-guess myself. When Dave came home that evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a calculator, surrounded by sketches and notes. I'd been trying to figure out how to produce 200 ceramic pieces in 6 weeks without losing my mind. Good day? He asked, loosening his tie. Dave, I need to tell you something. I just got commissioned by the mayor's office for a $15,000 project. He paused, hand halfway to the refrigerator. I'm sorry, what? The mayor's office. They want 200 custom ceramic pieces for their charity gala. It's a huge opportunity. Dave sat down across from me, his expression shifting from confusion to concern. Sarah, that's amazing. But can you actually do it? 200 pieces in 6 weeks? That was the question I'd been avoiding. At my usual pace, it would take me 4 months to complete that many pieces. I'd have to work 16-hour days, hire help, completely restructure my entire process. I think so, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. I'll need to buy more equipment, maybe hire an assistant. It's going to be intense. What if you can't deliver? What if something goes wrong? Then I'll have failed spectacularly, I said. But Dave, this could change everything. This could prove that what I do is real. He was quiet for a moment, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Okay, what do you need me to do? That night, we converted our garage into a second workspace. Dave helped me move equipment, set up tables, install better lighting. For the first time since I'd started my business, he seemed to understand the scale of what I was trying to accomplish. The next 6 weeks were the most intense of my life. I hired my neighbor's daughter, Emma, a college art student who knew ceramics. I bought 2 more pottery wheels, a larger kiln, and enough clay to build a small house. My days started at 5 a.m. and ended at midnight. Shape, dry, fire, glaze, fire again. Every piece had to be perfect because there was no time for do-overs. I painted delicate cherry blossoms on each piece, a symbol of renewal and hope that Linda Crawford had specifically requested. Dave would bring me coffee and sandwiches while I worked. He'd sit quietly for a few minutes watching me paint, and I could see something changing in his expression. The way he looked at my work was different now. There was respect there, maybe even a little awe. He never realized how precise this has to be, he said, watching me paint tiny details on a vase. One wrong brushstroke and you'd have to start over. That's why it takes so long, I said, not looking up from my work. Every piece has to be perfect. 3 weeks in, I was exhausted, but ahead of schedule. Emma was proving to be incredibly talented, and we'd developed a rhythm that was actually working. Then, disaster struck. The kiln malfunctioned during an overnight firing. 37 pieces, nearly a week's worth of work, cracked beyond repair. I stood in the garage at 6 a.m. staring at the ruins of my beautiful ceramics and cried.
Day found me there 20 minutes later. What happened? The kiln overheated. I've lost dozens of pieces. I don't know if I can make up the time. Instead of saying, I told you so, Dave did something that surprised me. He rolled up his sleeves and said, show me how to shape the basic forms. I'm taking the day off. Watching my corporate finance husband try to center clay on a pottery wheel was both hilarious and touching. His first 3 attempts collapsed into lumpy messes, but he kept trying, determined to help however he could. This is incredibly difficult, he said, sweat beading on his forehead as he attempted his 10th bowl. How do you make it look so easy? 3 years of practice, I said, working on my own wheel beside him. And a lot of failures. By the end of the day, Dave had managed to create 5 basic bowl forms. They were lopsided and rough, but they were recognizable as bowls. Emma and I could refine them, glaze them, turn them into something beautiful. He had no idea, Dave said that night, washing clay from under his fingernails. The physical strength it takes, the coordination, the patience, this isn't just arts and crafts, Sarah. This is skilled labor. Over the next 3 weeks, Dave spent every evening in the garage with me. He couldn't paint the delicate cherry blossoms, but he could shape basic forms, load and unload the kiln, pack finished pieces. He started calling it our business instead of Sarah's hobby. The transformation wasn't just in Dave's understanding of my work. I was changing too. The pressure of the commission had pushed me to become more efficient, more organized, more professional. I was thinking like a business owner, not just an artist. With 3 days left until the gala, we were at piece number 195. So close. But every remaining piece felt like climbing a mountain. My hands were cramping, my back ached, and I was surviving on coffee and determination. Linda Crawford called for an update. How are we looking, Sarah? We'll have everything ready, I said, praying it was true. The pieces are beautiful. I think you're going to be thrilled. I have to admit, I was worried when we gave you such a tight timeline, but Margaret assured me you were the right person for this job. After I hung up, Emma looked at me with concern. Are you sure we'll make it? We have to, I said. Failure isn't an option. Dave came home from work to find me painting the final details on piece number 198. How close are we? 2 more, I said, my voice hoarse from exhaustion. Just 2 more. He sat down beside me and picked up a brush. Show me how to paint the cherry blossoms. Dave, you can't just... Sarah, I've been watching you for weeks. I know I can't do the detailed work, but I can do the simple branches. Please, let me help you finish this. Together, we painted the last 2 pieces. Dave's branches were simple, but they were steady and clean. When we fired them the next morning, they came out perfect. 200 ceramic pieces, each one unique, each one beautiful. We'd done it.
The charity gala was held at the Grand Ballroom downtown, the kind of event where everyone wore their best clothes and donated serious money to worthy causes. Linda had invited Dave and me to attend, saying it was important for the donors to meet the artist behind their gifts. I wore my best dress, the one I'd gotten married in, and Dave wore his nicest suit. When we walked into the ballroom, I felt completely out of place among the city's elite. But then I saw them, my ceramic pieces, beautifully displayed on elegant tables, each one catching the light perfectly. Sarah, Linda appeared at my elbow. They're absolutely stunning. Everyone's been asking about them. As the evening progressed, I watched people examine my work, turning the pieces over in their hands, admiring the painted cherry blossoms. A woman in pearls told her husband, "This is real artistry. Look at the detail in these brushstrokes." The mayor herself, Patricia Williams, found me during cocktail hour. "You must be Sarah Mitchell. I wanted to personally thank you for these beautiful pieces. They're exactly what we hoped for." "Thank you, Mayor Williams. It was an honor to create them. I understand you run a small business from home." "Yes, I have an Etsy store. It's small, but it's growing." She smiled. "Well, after tonight, I suspect it's going to grow quite a bit more." The real moment came during the dinner portion of the evening. Mayor Williams stood to address the crowd, thanking donors and sponsors. Then she said something that made my heart stop. "Before we continue, I want to recognize someone special. These beautiful ceramic pieces you've received tonight were created by a local artist, Sarah Mitchell. Sarah runs a small business from her home, and she single-handedly created all 200 of these unique pieces in just 6 weeks. The crowd applauded, but she wasn't finished. Sarah's work demonstrates that small businesses aren't just economic engines, they're cultural treasures. The time, skill, and passion that went into each of these pieces is immeasurable. When I sat back down, Dave leaned over and whispered, "I owe you an apology. This is absolutely a real job. This is real artistry. I'm so sorry I didn't see it before." The rest of the evening was a blur of congratulations, business cards, and commission requests. By the time we left, I had inquiries for 3 more major projects and a waiting list of individual customers. 6 months later, I moved my studio out of our garage and into a proper workspace downtown. I hired 3 part-time employees, including Emma, who'd become an invaluable partner. Dave left his corporate job to become my business manager, handling the administrative side while I focused on creating. Sarah's Ceramic Garden was no longer just an Etsy store. We had a website, a showroom, and a 6-month waiting list for custom pieces. The mayor's gala had been covered by the local newspaper, and the article about my work had been picked up by regional magazines. But the real change was in my relationship with Dave. He'd gone from dismissing my work as a hobby to becoming my biggest supporter and advocate. He understood now that artistry and business could coexist, that passion and profit weren't mutually exclusive. "You know what I learned?" he said one evening as we cleaned up the studio together. "I thought a real job had to look like my job. Corporate, structured, predictable. But watching you these past months, I realized that real work is about creating value, solving problems, and serving people. You've been doing that all along." The commission from the mayor's office had been more than just a financial windfall. It had been validation that my work mattered, that what I created brought joy and beauty into people's lives. It had shown me that I could handle pressure, meet deadlines, and deliver professional results. Most importantly, it had changed how I saw myself. I wasn't just someone who made pretty things as a hobby. I was a skilled artisan, a business owner, a professional who happened to work with clay instead of spreadsheets. Dave still teases me sometimes about my little Etsy store, but now it's with pride, not dismissal. He loves telling people about the night the mayor ordered 200 pieces, about how his wife went from working in our garage to running a successful ceramics business. And I love reminding him that sometimes the things that don't look like real jobs turn out to be the most real of all. Last month, the Mayor Williams commissioned another 300 pieces for the city's upcoming arts festival. As I signed the contract, I thought about that Tuesday morning when Dave had walked into my mess room and laughed at my little hobby. I'm not laughing now. I'm too busy running a real business, creating real art, and living a real dream that started with a simple belief that beautiful things matter, that handmade has value, and that sometimes the most important work doesn't look like work. The best part? Dave is right there beside me, covered in clay dust, finally understanding that the most fulfilling jobs are the ones that don't feel like work because you love them so much. This is the story of how a ceramic artist proved that passion and profession can be the same thing, and how sometimes it takes a mayor's gala to make the people closest to us see what was there all along.